Well, welcome back. We're getting ready to set up a power cord on this thing, and I have one here left over. It was in my bench. It's left over from the last project. It's 6.5 feet long. Perfect. You know, there was a question one time in the Antique Radio Forum. Someone asked, they said, how long should the power cords be on these things? Well, you know, a lot of people made fun of that. Oh, I can't believe you're asking how long a power cord should be. You know, they should have never made fun of that. I don't think that guy ever returned to the Antique Radio Forum. That was a bad thing that day. I didn't like that. Anyway, I thought it was a legitimate question. The average length runs about 6 feet. But you know, if you want to make it 6.5, 7, 8, 10, 12, if you want your power cord to be 500 feet long, that's up to you. Generally speaking, though, they went about 6 feet, okay? If it's a little shorter, 5.5, don't worry about it. You know, make it whatever size you want. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to, you know, shape an end on this thing, strip the wires back, tin them and everything, and then we're going to run it down through here like so, and we're going to tie a knot in the other side so it can't pull back out. But we're going to make one more change. I want this cord to have this plastic thing wrapped around it, and I want it to be fastened probably like so, right there like that. I want it to be a lot stronger than just having a knot. I never did like, you know, just tying a knot. In order to get that thing ready, what we're going to do is take out this existing screw. Make a little modification here, but I think it'll be for the best. Then I'm going to go ahead and take this drill bit and I'm going to drill out the existing threads down in there. And that way when I put this nut and screw and flat washer and lock washer in there, I can tighten it right up. So that screw is going to be gone from there. And when we're done, I think it'll be a whole lot better, and the power cord will be a whole lot better and a whole lot more secure, just like that. You'll see. Well, I just discovered something. I do not have to drill out the threads. I can just leave it like that. Maybe in the future someone will still be able to use it with the original type of hex head screws. All I have to do is just thread it right on down in there. Now, isn't that cool? That makes life so much better. For those of you who have watched my videos, you know, for quite a while now, you've seen me prepare a power cord 1,000 times. This is just a cloth covered cord. I get it from radio days. I get it in 25. I might have bought the 50 footer this time, but they sold it in 25 and 50 foot rolls. And all you have to do, you know, is just take your old dikes and just, you know, I need some bare wire. I need to get the cloth out of there, out of the way. So I just took the dikes, nice sharp dikes, and I just cut along there, nip, 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 until I finally got enough exposed where I can go ahead and cut it off. Now I'll just go ahead and, you know, give it a cut right there next to the wire. Then I'll split this wire with the dikes. I'll just put the blades right between the two and cut, and then split it open. I just gave it a nice cut and shave and a haircut all the way around using this right here. You gotta get rid of all that fraying stuff. If you don't, it'll just continually fray and fray and fray. Now, to keep it from fraying further, a little bit of clear nail polish all the way around. Just take the old nail polish and just kind of blob it on there all the way around. Let it soak into that cloth, and it'll keep that thing from fraying any further, okay? You know, you be liberal with it. Alright, now we'll take our old dikes and just kind of cut right in the center between those two pieces of wire that are laying side by side. That's got that. There we go. Now we'll go ahead and split it almost all the way up. But I've got a piece of heat shrink on here. After we get it split and everything right about to where we want it, we'll go ahead and put some heat shrink to cover that right there, which will give it added strength, okay, and keep it from fraying even more. Then we'll just go ahead and strip the ends and tin the ends of the wire, and then we can go ahead and run it down through the hole in the chassis. Piece of cake. Now that's what I'm talking about right there. Looks nice and neat. Got a piece of heat shrink on it, been shrunk down. The ends have been tinned. Notice I didn't tin it all the way down to where it's tinned up underneath the insulation. You don't want that. That's called wicking. We do not wick, if possible, because the wire could break. This pertains to any wire you solder that's stranded. You could get a broken wire up underneath the insulation because you wicked solder all the way up underneath there, and you'd never know it. You'd search and search and search, and then finally, if you got lucky, you'd find out what the problem is. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and stick that down through there, and we're going to tie a knot on the other side. Well, there's the knot. Now what I'm going to do is cinch the knot up all the way up against the bottom of the chassis right there. Just pull it right on up till it's tight. Then I've got to unsolder, well, I'll do this first actually. I'll unsolder this stub of the old electrical cord off of this Bakelite block connector. And I'll unsolder the other stub off of the fuse. Well, there we go. We're all soldered up here. We're all soldered up here. Now let's go top side and pull this thing all the way through nice and tight and get this thing set up there. Now this thing is a little bit bigger around than our cloth covered cord. So what I'm going to do is put a couple of heat shrink tubings. I'm just going to slide it down the wire, then I'm going to shrink the first one down, then I'm going to slide the second one down over the top of it and shrink it. And that'll take up the space, which will give me a nice snug hold onto that thing. Plus this surface here would be easier to grip than the cloth. But, you know, first I'm going to have to give it a little haircut on the end, as you can see. And I'll go ahead and probably, to make life easier, I'll put a little bit of that, you know, that clear polish on the end. You know, get everything laying down flat so it's easier to work with. Later on I'll probably have to strip it back a little bit further though. The first one is on and shrunk down. Now we'll take the second one and put right over the top of it and shrink that one down next. That's about it. Not a whole lot of heat is required. And that should do it. We'll let it cool down a little bit now and go ahead and stick this baby on there. Well, there it is. Nice and snug. Not going to go anywhere. You can't move it. I've got a lock washer on the other side, and I put a flat washer up here. You don't want to just put the screw head against the plastic. You want something tough. But that's not going to go anywhere. Solid as a rock. You know, it's a little unorthodox and it's not original, but you know, I feel a whole lot safer knowing that that cord's not going to keep pushing down inside that hole. I've seen that happen so many times, I just don't like it. And I didn't want to bore another hole in the chassis to do it, so that's why I used the existing screw. You know, you don't have to do this. This is just a personal preference that I have, okay? And I think it doesn't look all that bad, you know. Our next little chore is to replace these wires. These grid cap wires, they are really mangy. They were, you know, stripped down also, and I had to put liquid tape on them. And here's another one right here. That baby's going to go also. We're going to, you know, take off that grid cap and put it on nice new wires that I have over here. These two wires will take care of that. Then we have a third wire. That's this one that runs from this center gang up over the top of this separator and down over here to this gang, and it's held on with this twisted piece of thin metal, soft metal, so it can be twisted real easy. Let me see if I can get down there real close so you can see it. What that is, you remember, of those of you who watch my videos, that is a gimmick capacitor, and we're going to need that wire. So all I'm going to do is just take this little piece of white wire and run it through the same way, solder it on and bring it over. This is not soldered here. It is not soldered. It's just wrapped, this little flat wire is just wrapped around a couple of times. That's it. Right around the insulation. Let's go ahead and change out these old speaker wires. There's 4 of them. I'm just going to go ahead and remove this knot right here, untie it, and then just measure the length and cut 4 wires. And then we'll put the tips on each of the wires. We'll remove them from here and put them on the new ones. Alright, according to the ruler, it is 2 feet 10 inches are the length of these wires. 2 feet 10 inches. I'm just going to go ahead and cut 4 wires at 3 feet. I'm not going to quibble over 2 inches. The first step is to cut through these string wrappings they put on them at the factory. And once I get that done, then I can untwist every single wire. I'm just going to take my own knife, old pocket knife, just cut right through it. Cut through that one, and just cut through that one. One more thing before I start heating these solder tips and removing them. You know, if you're uncomfortable just unsoldering, you know, the bundle of wires like this, then go ahead and splay them out and change them out one wire at a time. Okay? And then put a little piece of tape on them if you want. They can label them. Do whatever's comfortable for you, whatever works for you. Well, you know, what works for me or someone else may not work for you. Do it the best way that'll get the job done for you. Okay? All the tips have been soldered on, and now all we have to do is clip off the wire, because the wire, you know, sticks up through quite a ways there. So we'll just go ahead and, you know, put it in something to hold it, and just get right down there nice and flush and clip it off. That's all there is to it. Now you can kind of take a little bit of a, that one I didn't quite go low enough. There we go. Take a little bit of sandpaper and kind of sand the end of it smooth. Okay, I'll do the same thing for the rest of these tips. I recommend that you take a piece of black heat shrink or whatever color you like, a pretty sturdy heat shrink. Put a little piece over the end there where the wire goes up into the pin. And the first wire we're going to change is the one that's labeled green, and this will connect to the place on the schematic that, you know, I showed you earlier in the series. I'll show it again to you later. But we have a piece of green heat shrink on it. We're going to go ahead, take this piece of heat shrink right here and run it up the wire and run it over the top of the black and shrink it down, give it a little more strength, and that'll give it the identifying feature. I'll put a piece of green on this end and a piece of green on the other end. Alright, she's shrinking down good. Get it from all four round sides. That's all it takes. You don't have to go crazy on this stuff or go nuts, okay? It'll shrink down real nice right on it. Now let's put a piece on the other end down there. Now I ask you, doesn't that look a whole lot better with you know, the green on each end, which identifies it, plus the heat shrink on the tip? Looks a whole lot better than this ratty crap, doesn't it? Well, of course it does. There we go. Everything is all hooked up. Got the knot in it right here. That'll be pulled up nice and tight there like that from the top. And everything's laid out the way it's supposed to be. That turned out far better than I expected. Good to go. Let's go top side and take a look at it. You know, I've got the same problem on the top that I had with the power cord. You know, this thing drops down in all the time, goes down in. I don't like that either. And you know, right directly underneath down here is where I have that 25 watt power resistor. So I need to, you know, hold that up nice and snug against there like that. And I think what I'm going to do is use this screw and do the same kind of setup I did here. And it'll hold it more secure and keep it off that resistor. And I think it'll just be, in my mind, it's just an improvement, a better way of doing things. Now that we have the speaker wires all connected up, I went ahead and put the grid cap connectors on each one of these and got them all soldered up and looking good. And on this one over here. And I've decided that this wire right here, this little sucker you see right there, is just a little bit too frayed. I do not like that. And you know, I've got some red wire, so why shouldn't I just go ahead and tear this light socket back apart and put some nice brand new red wire in there? You know, that's what we do. That's what restorers do. That's the whole idea here, is to make things look better. Well, that's it, folks. All the major repairs that need to be done in this radio have been completed. From here on out, it's just little minor things that I can accomplish in an hour. Here's the close-up of that thing I put on to hold the speaker wire. That is nice and secure now. I don't have to worry about that going down under the chassis. I don't have to worry about the power cord going down under the chassis. You know, I've seen some guys who have tied knots on the bottom of the chassis and on the top of the chassis to keep that from happening. I never did like that. Anyway, this is going to work real well. And I managed to be able to, don't ask me how, but I actually managed to twist this this cable together, or these 4 cables together, so they almost look like the originals, except for the bright white color. And, you know, every so often I put a piece of heat shrink. I put a piece right there. Then I came up and I put another piece right there, about 6 inches apart from the first one, shrunk it down. The weak spot on this speaker wire setup is right here at the very end where these things split apart. Eventually, this little piece of heat shrink that I put right there is going to wind up, you know, breaking, and it'll just split and break apart. So what I'm going to do, I think, I have some really good strong industrial heat shrink. I'm going to slide that down over the top of that and shrink it down. That'll give it really good strength. It's black, but you know, it'll be up behind the speaker audio output transformer cover, so I don't think it'll be seen, and even if it is, so what? We're looking for something that'll last here. It'll look good. Well, there you go. That doesn't look too bad. I think it looks really nice. Okay? Alright, now we got a really strong setup there, which is what we're after. Alright, the next time you see this radio, I'm going to have all the tubes back in it, and we're going to go ahead and turn it on and make sure it works still. You know, anytime you go through a restoration, you finally get the radio working, but you still have to do a lot more work. It's always a good idea every so often to stop and plug it in to make sure it is still working, you know, because between the time it ran last time and now that you've done a lot of work on it, you don't know, you could have made a mistake, and you'll kind of know what you did between those 2 times, so it'll be easier to go back and go over what you did. Alright, I do have to have a power plug. I haven't bought a power plug for this thing. I thought I had a brown one, but I don't. Don't ask me where it went. I have no idea. And the big item left to do that does not operate is the shadow meter. I do not know why the shadow meter doesn't work. So, but it won't keep the radio from working. But we may have to have an additional video to troubleshoot and find out if that thing is going to work at all. I do want the shadow meter working. So, next segment, the radio will be turned on. I decided while I have the chassis up in the air, why not just go ahead and check out a couple of resistors in the line associated with that shadow meter right here. Here's the shadow meter. Now, it comes off of pin 3 of the phase inverter, which is the plate. Comes off. This is the automatic volume controller, the ABC circuit. It comes off, comes across, down, and the first resistor we run into is a 51K resistor. Now that's connected to pin 3 of the phase inverter tube socket. Then after the 51K it goes into a 32K, and then it shoots on over through a 1K and into the shadow meter. I went ahead and disconnected this, where are you at there? There it is. I went ahead and disconnected this 51K resistor from the socket. And that's this one right here. I have it loose. It does not read 51K. It reads 75K. So before I fire this up, I'll just go ahead and change it. I'm glad I did that. Now this is the 32K resistor that the 51K is connected to. It reads good. Right on. Actually, it reads 32 right on. And the 1000K or the 1K is way over here, and I've already replaced it because it was way out of tolerance. So hopefully that'll make a big difference on that shadow meter operation. If not, I don't know what we're going to have to do then. We'll have to check something else. Well, we got her all hooked up. All the tubes put back in, and all the speaker wires hooked up and everything. And just to show you how cantankerous these old radios can be, it's not working. All I'm getting out of it is static. Check that out. That's it. That's all I'm getting out of it. Don't ask me what the problem is again. Here we go. I'm going to have to do one of those we always fix the problem deals. Oh well, I get to go back in it. That's always the fun part. Anyway, we'll go ahead and knock this video off here, and I'll have to spend the next day or two, as soon as I get some time, that is, and do a little troubleshooting on this thing. So until next time, this is John.